Steering stem removal procedure. Park the vehicle in center stand. Turn the kill switch to off position and switch off the ignition key. Ensure that the front wheel and forks are removed from the vehicle. Use the safety cover over the fuel tank to avoid physical damage. Use 14mm socket to loosen M10 into 52 bottom riser mounting bolt on left side and remove the bolt on right side for accessing the steering stem lock bolt. Slide the handlebar assembly and use Torx T60 to remove the lock bolt and washer from the steering stem. Carefully detach the handlebar along with the top yoke from the steering stem and keep it aside safely. Use 5mm Allen key to remove the brake line bracket screw M6 into 12, 1 number, from the bottom yoke. Remove the tabbed washer. Use the C-spanner to remove the top M30 lock nut and rubber spacer. Use the C-spanner to remove the bottom M30 lock nut. Remove the headstock spacer. Remove the steering assembly seal. Remove the headstock internal spacer. Carefully lower the steering stem and remove the top taper roller bearing. Carefully remove the steering stem along with the bottom bearing. Use the bearing puller special tool along with 19mm spanners and verify the seating of the tool on the top bearing race evenly to remove the top bearing race from the headstock as shown. Use the bearing puller special tool along with 19mm spanners and verify the seating of the tool on the bottom bearing race evenly to remove the bottom bearing race from the headstock as shown. Remove the bottom ball bearing from the steering stem. Assemble the special tool and use 27mm ring spanner and 30mm open-end spanner to lock the bottom bearing race and remove the bottom bearing race from the steering stem as shown. Once the bearing race is released, remove the special tool and remove the bottom race and headstock bearing seal. Steering stem refitment procedure. Assemble the headstock bearing seal to the steering stem. Insert the bottom bearing race and seat the adapter on the race internal surface. Using the bearing race installer, hammer to assemble the bottom bearing race. Note: make sure the bearing race is seated properly. Assemble the bottom ball bearing to the steering stem. Assemble the top and bottom bearing race using the bearing installer tool as shown. Tighten the tool and ensure the bearing race seats properly on the headstock. Remove the bearing installer from the headstock and verify the bearing race seating using feeler gauge as shown. Insert the steering stem to the headstock and assemble the top taper roller bearing. Assemble the headstock internal spacer, steering assembly seal and the headstock spacer. Assemble the lower M30 lock nut to the steering stem and tighten it using C-spanner. Apply torque of 35 Nm. This is to ensure the bearing seating. Then relax the lock nut and retighten it to 15 Nm. Assemble the rubber spacer. Assemble the upper M30 lock nut and apply torque of 1 Nm. Assemble the tabbed washer. Use 5 mm Allen key to tighten the brake line bracket screw M6 into 12, 1 number, to the bottom yoke and apply torque of 10 Nm. Carefully assemble the handlebar along with the top yoke to the steering stem. Ensure the cables are not stressed during the assembly. Slide the handlebar assembly and assemble the washer to the steering stem. Assemble the lock bolt and use Torx T60 to tighten the lock bolt. Apply torque of 90 Nm. Use 14 mm socket to tighten M10 into 52 bottom riser bolt on the right side and apply torque of 45 Nm. Use 14mm socket to tighten M10 into 52 bottom riser bolt on the left side and apply torque of 45 Nm. Ensure that forks and front wheel are assembled to the vehicle. Refer to the fork and front wheel refitment video for details.